Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to welcome you to the virtual seminar cooperation between the Kingdom of Spain and the United Arab Emirates on Government Experience Exchange. As part of the mutual collaboration between the two governments, the United Arab Emirates and the Kingdom of Spain joined hands in opening the virtual session regarding best practices on government accountability. Starting with the opening remarks of His Excellency Francisco Martin Aguirre, Secretary General of the Presidency of the Government of Spain.
Good afternoon, buenas tardes, and thank you everyone for attending this seminar, and thanks especially to His Excellency Abdullah Nasser Lota, Director General of the Prime Minister's Office, for sharing these welcoming words. I'm thrilled and honored to open this seminar, which is a kickoff for a memorandum of understanding that will benefit both of our countries. This year, 2022, has been crucial to deepen the strong bilateral relationship between Spain and the United Arab Emirates. We are already cooperating closely on sectors such as defense, the aerospace industry, and education. And we are happy that our commercial ties has grown on many key sectors, including renewable energies. In February, President Sanchez traveled to the Emirates to attend the opening of the Spanish pavilion in the Dubai Expo 2020. It was the first time a Spanish president visited the United Arab Emirates since 2011. During this successful visit, both of our countries agreed to establish an upgraded political consultation mechanism at the ministerial level and a series of memoranda of understanding. This includes the one on mutual collaboration that summons all of us today at this seminar. We believe that we should keep going forward on the strategic partnership between United Arab Emirates and Spain, and so this seminar is just another step forward to achieve this goal. Today, we gather here to share the experience of both of our governments, and specifically the centers of government, on a very relevant set of topics. How to keep track on what governments do and how to improve government performance. Both Spain and the Emirates have launched initiatives to deal with a new public management approach in order to increase accountability, public policy evaluation, and efficiency. I'm very proud that we share with you today our experience with Cumpliendo, meeting our commitments. This is the first national systematic approach to accountability of the government of Spain. It's a groundbreaking peer review methodology that includes tracking of commitments and open data. The aim is to facilitate better monitoring of the government action through greater transparency, greater public responsibility, and the holding to public scrutiny of the decisions adopted. In the end, this contributes to improve public governance. Both of our governments share the principles that government institutions should be transparent, accountable, and effective. By changing our innovative approaches, I'm sure this is an outstanding opportunity to learn and to enrich our organizations by mutual collaboration. Thank you very much, and good seminar for all.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. For the second remark, I would like to invite His Excellency Abdullah Nasser Lota, the Director General of the Prime Minister's Office in the Ministry of Cabinet Affairs of the United Arab Emirates.
Buenas tardes. It's with great pleasure that I welcome you to this meeting, which marks a new milestone in the mutual cooperation between the governments of the Kingdom of Spain and the United Arab Emirates. The cooperation agreement signed by the Spanish government and the UAE last February reflects the vision of the two governments to adopt a constructive approach of international cooperation and to exchange government experiences for the benefit of the people of the two nations. This cooperation agreement represented a valuable addition to our existing strategic partnership under the Government Experience Exchange Program, which currently encompasses 18 countries. Today, we look forward to sharing our knowledge and experiences to maximize their benefits for both Spain and the UAE. The leading government practices and initiatives of the Kingdom of Spain offers inspiring success stories that we look forward to exploring and benefiting from. We also look forward to sharing the unique experiences of the UAE government, including, among others, the Government Accelerators Program and the Government Performance Management System. There are already more than 200 Spanish companies operating across various sectors in the UAE, and the non-oil foreign trade between the two countries witnessed a rapid growth of 17% in 2021 compared to 22, with 2.6 billion worth of trade. Today, we are enjoying bilateral relations stronger than ever before, with more than thousands of Spanish citizens living in the UAE and more than 3,400 direct annual flights. We are meant to do far more together. Once again, I warmly welcome you all in today's meeting and wish you successful and fruitful deliberations ahead. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. As part of the cooperation between the Kingdom of Spain and the United Arab Emirates, we are proud to share the knowledge, experience, and the best practices between our two friendly nations. The first session, titled Meeting Our Commitments, will start with Mr. Alejandro Marquez Mondaza, Technical Advisor of the Accountability Unit of the Presidency of the Government, and Ms. Alma Puerto Liedo, Technical Advisor of the Accountability Unit of the Presidency of the Government.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for attending to this seminar. We just wanted to express that it's an honor and a pleasure to be part of it. And so now, let's proceed with the presentation of meeting our commitments. In these sessions, we will be speaking about the purpose and background, the characteristics and principles of the accountability process of the Government of Spain, the methodology used to perform this exercise, the results and presentation of information, how we inform the public about this exercise, and the future aspirations of meeting our commitments. So let's begin with the purpose and background. So the first question is, what's meeting our commitments? Well, meeting our commitments is the report where the accountability exercise carried out by the Government of Spain is reflected. The accountability exercise of the Government of Spain is executed every 6 months, and through it, the government, on its own initiative and on voluntary basis, offers information directly to the citizens on the progress made in the achievement of the commitments made since the moment of its investiture by the Parliament and throughout the whole term. So the origins of this exercise lies in the commitment to render account periodically, which the president of the government assumed with the citizens at the beginning of the present term of parliament, specifically in the inaugural address, regarding the progress of the government's action. So the purpose of this whole exercise is to deepen the direct relationship between the government and the citizens. And besides the latter, it is also aimed to combat political disaffection, submitting and bringing government action closer to the citizens. This is premised on allowing a better monitoring of those in power through greater transparency, greater public accountability, and the submission to public scrutiny of the decisions taken.
So, what are the characteristics and principles of the accountability process of the government of Spain? Well, next slide. So, the different mechanisms of accountability we have in Spain are intended to reinforce the system of the representative mandate, since it is noticed that this system of governance can generate a feeling of distance between the citizenry and their representatives. Therefore, our Constitution provides for accountability mechanisms of government actions to eliminate this effect of disconnection between the citizenry and their representatives. So, among these bodies and institutions, we can find, for example, the figure of the parliamentary control of the executive through questions or requests of information. Also, we have justice courts and internal mechanisms of public administration. We have the horizontal accountability, such as the Court of Auditors. We have evaluations, and we have the vertical accountability, that is where meeting our commitments is placed. So meeting our commitments complement the system oriented to control the executive. Through meeting our commitments, the executive has committed itself to the scrutiny of the citizenship in an exercise of transparency to contribute to the democratic deepening of our country.
So, what are the process characteristics of meeting our commitments? Well, as previously mentioned, the initiative was promoted by the President of the Government of Spain, and then the Accountability Unit of the Spanish government was created to perform the task. The objective and cornerstone of the whole exercise is the exercise carried out by the Government of Spain is determining what the status of commitments are, and also by doing that, providing to the citizenry details of the measures implemented by the government. The scope of the action already described extends to three different areas: national, sectoral, and territorial. And finally, the last part of the characteristics associated with the process is referred to the target audience, which is the entire citizenry. However, this accountability exercise could also be aimed at constitutional institutions, such as the parliament, and other kind of institutions as a group, such as academia and third sector entities.
So, the accountability exercise is founded on the following principles. First, it is global, so it encompasses the action of the government as a whole. It also includes all commitments undertaken by the President of the government and by ministers from their inauguration and throughout all the term of Parliament. Also, it provides a dynamic follow-up, which monitors the entire formulation of commitments. Also, it is public and it's accessible, and the results are provided to the citizenry in different outputs, as we will see. It also has a methodological accuracy, which we will see, and it's very important, the traceability of commitment, to know the status of its commitment at any given moment of the term of Parliament. It is also complementary to other accountability mechanisms, as we've seen in previous slides, and it has low transaction costs, which means that efforts are being made so that requests of information to ministries are not highly demanding in terms of time and energy. It is also ongoing and periodical, and it is submitted to public scrutiny. So the exercise will be conducted over the entire term of Parliament, and foreseeably the report is published every 6-month period.
So now we will be talking about the methodology used in meeting our commitments. But first, we would like to show you what our working system is. So it goes as follows. First, commitments are identified, systematized, updated, and analyzed. Then, the achievement criteria of each commitment is defined. After that comes the follow-up and monitoring of the initiatives carried out by the government, which may comply with different commitments. Then, a prior analysis of the achievement of the commitments is carried out based on the initiatives implemented by the government throughout the 6-month periods, and with the achievement criteria established for each commitment. Then, this information obtained during the follow-up is monitored and shared with the ministries in charge of carrying out the initiatives. Then, based on the analysis of the status of commitments, the 6-month period reports of meeting our commitments are prepared. And finally, once the different reports have been drawn up, the data used by the accountability unit to perform its duties is disseminated and published in open access so it can be accessible for everyone. So, what's the methodology used in meeting our commitments? Well, this methodology is an ad hoc method produced by the implementation of a comparative analysis of different accountability exercises performed in other countries and the interaction between the presidency of the government's accountability unit and the analysis group. Due to this continuous interaction, the methodological bases are constantly evolving with the introduction of new elements of improvement. So I've just referred to the analysis group, but who are they? The analysis group is a group of experts in different fields related to the accountability and public policy analysis. The list of experts that make up the analysis group is public. The selection of the members of the analysis group has been carried out by applying a series of criteria, such as their academic, teaching, and researching expertise, their specialization in the analysis, monitoring, and on evaluation of public policies, and their territorial diversity and gender-based criteria. It is also worth mentioning that they all belong to the university community. So what's this analysis group for? The work of the analysis group allows the accountability unit to verify the validity, applicability, and rigor of the methodology designed for the execution of meeting our commitments. Their work is governed by the principles of independence and freedom of judgment, and all its consideration and all recommendations are collected, valued, and taken into account by the accountability unit. All their conclusions are public and accessible for everyone. In short, the analysis group is a warranty for the citizenry of the scientific rigor, systematicity, and predictability of the results of the accountability exercise carried out by the government, as it has validated the methodological basis on which they are based. So, what are the foundation of the exercise? Well, these are the key elements or concepts used in which the whole exercise is based, and without them, it wouldn't be understood. These are the very concepts of commitment and initiative itself. So, what's a commitment? A commitment is any statement, obligation, promise, or declaration expressly made by the government to respond to a specific public need or problem, and to a certain degree, to comply with the transform of reality. A commitment, therefore, generates an expectation in third parties and, in return, a responsibility and obligation for the government to respond. So an initiative is any public measure, action, or decision that launches a process or mobilizes resources aimed at addressing a public need or problem. So commitments are very heterogeneous in terms of their origin, content, characteristics, and degree of complexity. For this reason, it has been decided to establish a classification according to parameters such as their origin or source, access of the inaugural address, the guidelines of recovery, transformation, and resilience plans, sustainable development goals, the government function classification, and by topics. It's also worth mentioning that an initiative must be accompanied by the source of verification. This source of verification might be reflected through formal channels, such as being published in the State Official Gazette, or informal ones, such as press release or Twitter or social media. So, what's achievement? Well, the analysis of the achievement of commitments consists of determining the degree of achievement of the promised products, results, or actions. Initiatives are the element that triggers and will eventually fulfill a commitment to which they are associated when the product, result, or action in which the commitment consists is achieved. To identify when a commitment is achieved, we have to resort to the concept of achievement criteria, which basically means the product or thing that you need in order to get the desired objective. Achievement criteria is constituted by the indicator that measures the realization of the commitment plus the point of arrival of what is intended by the commitment. Commitments can be found, as you can see in the slide, in two general states: not activated, when no initiative has yet been taken to complete them, and activated. The latter status is further subdivided into several sub-statuses, depending on the degree of achievement of the associated achievement criteria. These sub-statuses are underway, met, and relinquished. Let's go with the first one. Underway. This is when some initiative tending to reach the achievement criteria has been carried out. This status is also divided in several sub-statuses, and they are: with advances, when some initiative has been carried out in the reference semester; without advances, when in a previous semester some initiative tending to comply with the commitment has been carried out, but in the current semester no additional initiative has been added or no work has been continued on previous initiatives. And the third one is in the hands of third parties. This means when an initiative that allows to go further in the process of achievement does not depend on the government because it is in parliament or in an international organization, such as the EU. Met. A commitment is met when the intended result is obtained, which means that the achievement criteria has been reached. And by last, relinquished. This is when the commitment had been expressly discarded in a reasoned and justified manner by the government.
So the results of the statuses of commitments are shown in a quantitative and qualitative way. Regarding to the quantitative data, it is shown the evolution or progress made on commitments in percentages, but it also shows the status of commitments by source. For example, you can see here the data for the inaugural address of the President of the government, but you will also see the results by source and other sources, for example, the agreement between political parties, the commitments formulated by ministries in strategic lines of actions, and from other sources, for example, public statements, plans, or visits, which you can find in the Appendix 1 of the document, the methodology. But it is also given another kind of results, for example, the status of commitments by function of government, by strategic lines of action, or by topic. But the report also provides qualitative information, such as the most significant commitments and initiatives carried out. For example, here you can see from the last 6-month period, the Iberian exception, the Act for a Circular Economy, housing policies with the rental voucher for young people, or the law of vocational training. This is examples about the qualitative information that is given. So all the reports and documents can be consulted in the highlights section of the website of Presidency of Government. You can download the report in English, you can access the dynamic display panel, you can download all documents, including appendixes, the executive report, or the main points of the meeting or commitment report that is an infography. And there you can also download the open database with all of the 1,494 commitments and all of their initiatives. In this open database that is available to download from the Presidency of the Government website includes all commitments with their achievement criteria, with the status of each commitment, with verification sources for the initiatives, and with source and other classifications for the commitments to allow citizens to analyze by themselves, focusing on their own priorities. So with this open database, citizenship could apply their own analysis to the data. And the dynamic display panel can be used by the citizenry to consult the progress made on commitments and their statuses through the 6-month period since July 2020, that is the beginning of this term of Parliament. Also, it is shown the status of commitments by source. Here you can see the agreements between political parties and the status or commitments met by functions of government. Next slide. Okay, so also analysis and visualization options have been increased. So since last July of this year, visualization offers the possibility to search commitments by topic. This means that you can search, for example, by the topic of digital transformation, and you will obtain the percentage of commitments met and underway related to this topic, but also a detail for each commitment and the initiatives carried out by the government.
So now let's proceed with the final stage of the accountability process, which is informing the public about the exercise. So how is meeting our commitments disseminated? Well, the public dissemination of the report is carried out in cascade and from a multidimensional perspective, informing citizens about the government's actions and the achievement of its commitments from 3 approaches: global, sectoral, and territorial. As we've previously said, meeting our commitments is presented by the President of the Government of Spain every 6 months in a televised press conference. The day after each presentation by the President of the Government, the second level of accountability is activated with the application of a sectoral perspective of the accountability exercised by all ministries. Subsequently, a few days after the publication of the sectoral perspective of meeting our commitments, the accountability process is completed with the presentation of a territorial scope by all the government's delegates. Additionally, the accountability unit is working on the dissemination of the report through forums and seminars specialized in transparency, good governance, and accountability, both at a national and international level. In this regard, we have participated in the Open Government Forum, in a seminar at the Center for Political and Constitutional Studies, in the 8th Congress of Public Innovation, and in a seminar in the Masters of Evaluation. And as I've mentioned, at an international level, we are, with the accountability units exercise of the we participated in forums and events such as the presentation of the R2C by the President of the Government at the Summit for Democracy organized by the USA, and a specific webinar organized by the Latin American Center for Administration for Development. And this exercise is also disseminated by the Spanish embassies abroad. And by last, we are participating in bilateral meetings as this one, and in contacts to disseminate this report.
So what are the future aspirations of the accountability exercise of the government of Spain? Well, the main objective for the future with regards to the accountability exercise is to consolidating and institutionalizing accountability in Spain, and that the system implemented by the presidency of the government had a vocation of future and permanence in time that did not depend on the mere will of the government in the moment. So other aspirations is to bring citizens and specialized stakeholders closer to how government action is carried out, to contributing to political disaffection, to promote institutional learning, and enhancing democratic quality and public governance to contribute to the strengthening of open government values. But we would also like to point out that in order to achieve these goals, one of the main lines of action is to deepen the public disclosure of the exercise so it reaches all citizens. So we would like to thank you very much for your interest and attention, and it's been a pleasure being in this seminar, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to welcome Dr. Radi Al-Hashmi, Managing Director of Government Accelerator Center at the Prime Minister's Office in the Ministry of Cabinet Affairs of the United Arab Emirates.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to talk about our story, UAE story, from the launch of the vision up to how we accelerated the results. Vision 2021, we have launched it in 2010. At that time, we wanted the whole country to focus on 4 main pillars: on united in responsibility, united in destiny, united in knowledge, and united in perspective. We brought the different government officials, the different ministry retreat. We brought everybody together to brainstorm how can we find innovative solution for these different challenges. We focused our first brainstorming session on education and health sector. Then we started to expand it more to bring all the different partners and all the different government entities, from a local government and a federal government. They all came together to brainstorm how can we really find the national agenda for the country, and how can we really look and define for national key performance indicators. So we brought together more than 90 federal and local entities. More than 160 programs came out from these different initiatives, and a lot of different 18 workshops and more than 200 working hours that everybody, all the governments came together to come up with the best national agenda. So we focus our national KPIs on 2 main sectors. We focus on some indicators were so focused or revolved around the citizen priority, and other indicators were focused more on global comparison and competitiveness. We came up with more than 100 national KPIs that we looked at different sectors, depends on the priority sector that we have in our Vision 2021. From there, when we went through all this and looked at the national KPIs, definitely it was not an easy path. There was a lot of different obstacles that the government was facing, and we're trying to identify these obstacles and try to find different ways in order for us to resolve and support the government to achieve all these KPIs. So we looked at the different initiatives or solutions that the private sector has. We looked at different startups and we looked at the incubators. What do they have that the government, we can learn from them and we can reflect it and customize it for the government? So we proposed to His Highness, the Prime Minister, that we want to work on an initiative called Government Accelerator to accelerate and speed up the achievement of the government. And His Highness blessed our initiative, and that is the time we launched the Government Accelerator Center. We wanted the government to rethink about a unique model to accelerate results, to increase collaboration, and to strive innovative solution to overcome this challenge. If you may, just we're going to see a quick video of how the Government Accelerator started. So I close the volume so that I can just talk. Over here, you'll see the dynamic of the space. When we have a different initiative and we have a different challenge, you'll see different private sector, government entities, NGOs, local authorities, everybody comes on the same table and they all discuss an innovative solution in order for them to come up with a different initiatives, try it out as initiatives. If it works, they continue it. If it doesn't work, they can revamp the initiative until they achieve their goal within 100 days. So let's just show you briefly how it looks when we have here the different teams come to the Government Accelerator. So over the course of now almost 6 years, we were able to solve more than 60 challenges. We have engaged more than 200 participants from government, private sector, universities, NGOs. Everybody came together in order for us to solve these problems. We got a couple of different special cohorts, which was specifically less than 100 days. And then we had the 100-day challenge, which were more than 7 cohorts. We started different capacity building and exchange of our knowledge with 100 countries, and in detail or a launch of the cohort in 2 main countries, which I'll talk about it more later in my slide. But overall, after these different initiatives that we have done, you can see here that we have different impact of these achievements. Some of them were really impacted the customer, like more than 57,000 way of getting new identity for a newborn. We were able to get more than 7,000 employees in the private sector. So these are really tangible impact that we saw over the course of 6 years in the different initiatives that we worked on. So what is our journey at the Government Accelerator? Usually when you ask a government or you ask a government employee, why is your project stuck? Mostly they say, we have limited resource, or they'll say we have limited budget, or sometimes they say we don't have time. What we tell them, when you come with your challenge and your initiative here at the Government Accelerator, we support you with the available resource from different parties and the stakeholders. There's no extra budget when you come to the Government Accelerator because we can support each other. And of course, less time because our maximum is you need to solve your problem in 100 days. So how do we do that? Collaboration, collaboration, collaboration is the main point, and the key point is to talk about. Because collaboration of the different entities, local entities, federal entities, government, private sector, when everybody collaborates, they're able to solve the problem. We also encourage a lot of innovation and experimentation throughout the 100 days. They can try it out. They can try initiative. It works. Then they continue. If it doesn't, they can really change the initiative. They still have time of 100 days. The sense of urgency, we've put a limit 100 days, so 100 days or less. So the sense of urgency makes people innovate and try different solutions. Our success story over the years, we found out that when the people come, or the participant or the team come to the Government Accelerator, they need to come with a positive attitude. They need to come with a yes and mentality. We always bring the leadership buy-in, like you've seen in the video. His Highness comes here, the ministers. They come and follow up on the team and make sure that they reach their target within the time limit that they have. So at Government Accelerator, we have 3 main methodologies. We have accelerating decision-making, accelerating planning, accelerating implementation. I'll talk quickly about each of the methodologies. So in accelerating decision-making, usually we focus on a decision has to be made within a shorter time period. So we had an example of a foreign investment law had to be issued. But in order for us to issue this law, we need to buy-in from all the 7 emirates. We need the buy-in from the local authority, from the economical department. So in order to get a buy-in from all the government, we brought them all together at the government accelerator, and all of them, they were looking at how can we really get this foreign investment law in a shorter time with the full benefit. So when we brought the team, within 2 months, they were able to identify the foreign investment law and look at the different sectors that they want to focus on. And within 2 months, they were able to issue this law. The second methodology that we have is accelerating implementation, which we are famous of, is the 100-day journey. And in here, we have different types of challenges which comes to us in the government. We have challenges which is very specific government work, like we started with the National Agenda Challenge, and then we expanded to government policy and laws and bylaws. I'll just talk quickly about each of them. So in the national agenda, we have different KPIs, like we've seen. We had more than 100 KPIs, and not all of them were doing well. An example was a reducing of how can you reduce a death from the road accident. So what we've done, we brought all the different teams from different stakeholders to work on the challenge of reducing the death rate of 21%. And the team had put a goal of 21% among the 5 most dangerous roads. After 100 days, when they worked with us, with a different stakeholder, they were able to achieve 63% of reduction in the death rate from the accident. And they were able to save 26 lives and more than 48 million US dollars. The second example that I want to talk about is government policy. And you guys know that government policy is also hard and it needs a long time. So how can you crack and develop a government policy in 100 days? I focus on the electrical car policy. We wanted to introduce electric car in the country, but still we didn't have the infrastructure. We didn't have a policy to support it. There was no insurance scheme to support electric car. There were no loans. They were not giving loans. The banks were not giving loans for the electric car. So we brought all these different stakeholders from insurance company, from banks, from government to work together to issue this policy. And now when you see in UAE and Dubai and Abu Dhabi, we have electric car everywhere. We have electrical station everywhere. And there's a lot of incentive for people to buy electric cars. The third also a hard topic that usually also comes to accelerator is laws and bylaws. How can you crack and how can you really find innovative solutions in laws and bylaws? And the one I want to focus on is an example of a small claim court. We found out that the small claim court was standing in line with the big claims. So it was taking like a couple of months or a year to achieve or to solve their claims. So what we've done, we brought the team together to brainstorm idea, how can they really focus on the small claim and find initiatives and innovative idea in order for them to solve it in less than a month. And they were able to crack it within 100 days. They were able to solve the small claim court within 1 working week. The other challenges that comes also to government accelerator is also community-focused challenges, like government services, data-driven, and customer experience. I'll just go quickly through them. The government services, we have a lot of examples of how can we improve government services, how can we really speed up the government services. The one I want to focus on is a bundle called Newborn Bundle, Mabruk Mayag. Before the challenge, when a parent gets a new baby born, they always have to go to different places to get their paperwork of the new baby, to get their passport, to get their ID, a lot of document, a lot of visit, a lot of hours wasted. Instead of being with the new baby, they are going to different government entities. So what we have done, we brought all the team members from different government entities to work together to find an easier solution that everybody collaborate, all these entities collaborate together in order for them to solve the problem. So within 100 days, they were able to have all the different government work in one visit online Only the parents can be only at like in the hospital. They just need to choose a name and then click, and everything they get within 3 days. They get a box with their passport, with their ID, with the birth certificate, everything it's ready for the new baby born. And now, up to date, we're getting more than 57 registered babies in this platform, more than 90 hospitals already registered, and 15 entities they already collaborated, and their platform are all integrated. The other component or the other topics that comes, which is challenging, is data-driven. And how can we really simplify the data? Like we've heard about the golden visa and how we had to integrate different entities in order for us to speed up the golden visa for the different customer. We also worked on the national economic registry for the economical registration for the employees, private sector, and also for the employers. So these are different ideas and different topics that we also worked on. And the last one, which I want to share, is the customer's experience. And how do we really simplify customer's experience in different things? Like example is death procedure. How can we really simplify a tragic event, but then it is simple for the customer to get all the paperwork and the death certificate and everything simplified in only one click? So these are different methodologies that we have worked on 100. The third methodology that we have is accelerating planning. Over here, when we have different entities and we want to work on accelerating planning, we worked an example is a net zero climate cohort. We wanted to put a roadmap for 2050 and bringing all the different entities. We had more than 40 entities from the public and the private sector. Each of these entities had different topics or different initiatives that they are working on. How can we bring all these initiatives together in one document that we can announce as a net zero roadmap for 2050? So within 60 days, we brought all these different entities. They were able to identify 192 different initiatives, and all these different members worked together in order for us to report this roadmap by 2050, and we were able to present it in Glasgow in COP26, our results for the globe. And now, after working on these different initiatives, now we are focusing on the Centennial Vision 2071, which we launched in 2017. We want to focus on how do we get a futuristic focused government. How can we get excellent education? How can we diversify our knowledge economy? And how can we have a happy and cohesive society? So His Highness or Prime Minister had really focused he wanted us to work on transformational projects, to work on the project that really will push our country 50 years ahead. So what we have done in the government, we have brought together all the different ministries, government leaders, to work together and to brainstorm different ideas. What is the priority of the future priority of the government in the coming 10 years and in the coming 30 years? We also worked with a different teamwork from 600 team members from 48 entities. Everybody worked together to find these transformational projects. After we come from these transformational projects, we had like a commitment from these different ministries that they would implement these transformational projects within the coming 6 months to 1 year, and we'll be launching 100 transformational projects per year. It's a quick, easy. So now, after the success stories that we have tried it out here and experiment in UAE, we are starting to share our knowledge with different people. We've opened a massive bilingual online course that anybody can go. It's a free course. They can go and learn more about the government accelerator methodology. We also started to train the different participants from the government in order for them to learn the initiative and to learn the methodology that we have in the government accelerator and try it out in their own challenge in their own entity. Also, we start to do knowledge exchange with different countries. We started with Jordan and Uzbekistan. And in Jordan, we went and we trained the different employees and in the government over there. And now they have launched their third cohort. And you can see that the dynamic of the team, they're coming from different organizations and they learn the methodology and we support them in the first cohort. And now they learned all the different methodology and they're running themselves in their own challenges in their own country. Also, we've done the same for the government of Uzbekistan. We have trained them and we've trained the team to work together also on different methodology and how can you tackle different challenges in their governments. And also, we've trained the bigger government employees in Uzbekistan, and they have launched their fourth cohort. And they're working on expanding that and cracking and finding different innovative solutions for their challenges in their own government in Uzbekistan. And now, after working with these different countries, we also opened the door to work with the international organization, and we're working with the WHO to support them in implementing or achieving their global health goal. And hopefully within a couple of weeks, we'll be launching their first cohort with the WHO in Geneva. And I think the biggest quote that we always use from His Highness is, the biggest risk is not to take any risk. And we always encourage all the different entities and different participants to really take a risk and try out the different solution in order to overcome these different challenges. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Radhi Al-Hashmi. And now, with the next session, I would like to welcome Mr. Khalifa Al-Hibsi, Head of Strategic Performance Section at the Prime Minister's Office in the Ministry of Cabinet Affairs of the United Arab Emirates.
Assalamu alaikum. Your Excellencies, respected ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today in this seminar for the Government Exchange Program. My name is Khalifa Al-Hibsi. I am the head of the Strategic Performance Section. Today, I will go with you about the UAE Government Performance Management Framework, which is giving me great pleasure to be part of the execution part of this agreement. First, allow me to start to cover what I'm going to discuss in this presentation. First, I will cover the performance management framework. How is the UAE performance management framework is developed? How did we manage it? And what are its components? And I would like to highlight that the word itself, when we hear meeting our commitments, what a beautiful word. Now, meeting our commitments as a part of the Spain government, it is something that worked in similar and aligned of our work, because the performance management framework is basically about meeting the commitment of the promises that we made to the citizens and to the people and to the public. Second, I will talk about the UAE vision and national agenda KPIs. How did we formalize the KPIs? Maybe Dr. Radhi in her previous presentation discussed about the KPIs that was formulating as the national agenda. Basically, it is how the government would measure its vision. When we talk about the vision, how do we measure it? What are its aspects and how do we see it realized? The third part is about the governance aspect of it. It is the performance electronic system, ADA. ADA, basically the Arabic word of performance. We are so proud in using one electronic system that's set as a governance that all the entities are mandated to use it as part of measuring their performance. So if an entity would like to use its own system, the Ministry of Finance will tell them, no, you have to use the central system in order to monitor your performance in a systematic approach. So allow me to start with the vision. I will not elaborate in this part because it was covered earlier. In 2021, we have the vision which was launched in 2010 is to make the UAE among the best countries in the world by the Golden Jubilee of the Union. It was very inspirational. Many people were talking about it and how it set a great vision for the country with a clear 4 main pillars that were discussed earlier. In 2017, we launched the UAE Centennial 2071, which is to make the UAE among the best to make the UAE the best country in the world by the next centennial in 2071. And this, we achieved many global indicators. We are so proud to announce number 1 in 162 indicators, 1 in the Arab world in 990 indicators, among the top 5 countries in 211 indicators. Those indicators from global reputed organizations like the WEF, the World Economic Forum, and other many reputed organizations. Now, let me start with you with my presentation about the strategic planning cycles. We have so far 5 strategic planning cycles. Initially, we started with 3-year cycle. The first strategic cycle was from 2008 to 2010 till the year 2016. It was 3-year cycles. Then we changed the duration of the cycle to make it 5-year cycles, because during 5 years, you can realize the initiatives that you are doing. And we have learned from experience that the longer your vision, the longer term of you set your strategic plan, the more realization you can get. So the 4th strategic cycle was from 2017 to 2021, and the 5th cycle is from 2022 to 2026. Let me talk about the strategic planning, budgeting, and performance management. This is the planning management cycle that we have in the UAE government. We start with the strategic planning. In the strategic planning, we have the launch of the national agenda of the UAE vision, including the identification of the national priorities. The national priorities are the priorities that are important to the citizen, to the public, to the private sector, to the government itself, in which it can be one of the leading government in the world. The second is about developing strategic plans for the federal entities. Each strategic plans will be based on its own sector. For example, health sector, education sector, judicial sector. Each entities relevant to that sector will develop their own entity strategic plans for the federal entities. Setting operational plans for the federal entities, basically how would you realize and achieve your strategic objectives. And finally, approving strategic and operational indicators targets for federal entities. It is a two-way cycle, two-way of communication. We don't determine the targets and KPIs for the entities. It is two-way of communication discussion between the Prime Minister's office and the federal government entities in order to reach a mutual understanding about the KPIs. Then will come the budgeting. After everything is clear, we have a clear strategic plan approved by the Prime Minister's office and the entities, we go to the budgeting. The budgeting is about estimating the federal government expenditures and revenues for those plans, approving the budget of the federal agencies, and adoption of the budget law. It is by law, we have to adopt the budget law by the Ministry of Finance. Third part, which is very close to my heart, is the performance management. It is about managing strategic and operational plans and their strategic and operational indicators in the ADA system, which is the performance system. Measuring the performance against targets, we have to have clear targets. Without having targets, you are just swimming without having a clear path. So we need to have clear targets for each entity and each KPI that is identified. And performance review. We have clear performance review in terms of the KPIs, and it varies. For example, for some KPIs, it can be longer, short-term, and mid-term. We will talk about this in the next slides. Setting performance development plans and addressing the received improvement opportunities. Having a plans, having a strategic is important, but the most important is the execution and the actions that you will take based on those plans. And this is what we do. So let me talk first about the UAE government strategic planning. How is the UAE government strategic planning? We have first the vision, which is published by the government. We have the vision, which is basically the national agenda and the national strategies. Then we have the role that the federal government entities play. Let me show you, there is some part which is developed by the federal government entities, starting with the strategic goals. The strategic goal of each entity develop their own strategic goals. For big entities, we have big number of goals, around 5 to 7 goals. For smaller entities, it would be less. And we have 2 shared strategic goals. I will talk about them in the next slides. After having a clear strategic goals, how you will achieve and realize the strategic goal. Each entity needs to develop its own initiatives and services in order to realize the strategic goals. And each initiative must have its own activities and each service must have its own sub-services. And let me show you this sample of strategic performance system. If we go from the top, we have the national priorities and the decisions in the top of the pyramid. Then we have the national KPIs. We transform this national priorities and directions from the leadership perspectives, from the top SMEs who participated in setting these priorities, because it is not just the leadership, it is the participation of the whole community, the subject matter expert, the people in the field, the practitioners. Everybody is participating in setting those priorities. Once it is set as a clear path for the priority for the nation, we set the KPIs. How are we going to measure success? What success look like? This is basically the national KPIs. Then we go to the sectorial KPIs. The sectorial KPIs, basically, it is the gaps or opportunities that support the national KPIs. We know nobody knows about the pandemic of Corona, but maybe in some areas it was opportunities for us in expediting the digital transformation. In some areas it might be challenged, but we learned a lot from it. So the sectorial KPI set to bridge this gap by setting new strategies as we see any opportunity or threat that is coming at the government work. Then we have basically the mandate, which is part of the strategic KPIs. Each entity was established to achieve a mandate. So those mandate is measured through a clear strategic KPIs with the clear targets. Then we have the operational measures and the services KPI. Basically, it is about the initiatives. We measure them through operational measures, and the services KPI, we measure them through by the services that the entities provide. What services? This is related to specific entities, which are service-oriented entities. And finally, we have one of layer, which is the shared government enabler KPIs. Basically, it is the KPIs that are related to the soft services of the entities, HR, finance, IT. It is basically the relation. If we look at from up to down, it is the government direction series. If we look at from down to up, it is ensuring the achievement through cause and effect relationship from inputs, outcome, results, impact, and long-term vision. Let me just take you some flavors about the government enablers and how we set the accountability and directions. We would like all the entities to have the same level of capabilities, the same level of skills and competencies in terms of when they are performing. So there are 6 main pillars for the enabler pillars. Now, and each pillar is owned by a federal government entity in order to ensure accountability. For example, the human resources pillar. And this, it is owned by the Federal Authority for Human Resources. And we have job engagement, job satisfaction, happiness and well-being, employee training, and training hours. Basically, it is creating an environment for the employees where they can furnish. The first 3 KPIs, it is based on e-survey. We do it as part of every 2 years. And the other parts is indicators. It is being developed within the ADA system. We have the gender balance. The gender balance is by the Gender Balance Council, and they are the people who are managing the whole process. And we have 3 main KPIs: the percentage of female leaders in the government work, the percentage of professional female employees in the government work, and the gender balance supporting environment. This is also a survey, the last one. Then we have in finance, the accuracy of the financial revenue, the accuracy of financial expenses, and the accuracy of financial budget. Customer happiness, basically, the finance is owned by the Ministry of Finance. The customer happiness is owned by the Prime Minister's office. In the customer happiness, we need to ensure are the customers who are getting the services from the different government entities happy from the services provided. And in this, we measure their happiness during their journey through electronic surveys and through some indicators for the services that are provided by the centers. There are centers meters. Through the services that are provided in digital platform, there are digital platforms to measure the level of satisfaction that they have after getting the service. We have the smart government. The smart government, basically, it is how do entities enable their digital environment. For example, the federal government services e-smart transformational rate. This is only for the services that are enabled to be transformed. There are some services by nature, they are not enabled to be transformed digitally. So this is for the services that are enabled. I will not go into them in detail because I need to cover as much as possible during my 20 minutes. So I will just give an example about the last one, which is e-smart services integration percentage. It is basically when a citizen or a public person goes to an entity, he asks for a service, the entity should not ask him to provide document A, document B, document C. There should be an integration for all the documents and the processes that the services need. So it will be flawless service for the customer. He will be getting the services in very flawless approach. Now we are talking about the proactive approach that before he even requests some of the services, it reached him. And finally, the government innovation. It is the percentage of innovation out of employee suggestions. Basically, we are trying to cluster an environment and culture of innovation within the federal government entities where we embrace innovation as part of the government work. And the final one is the level of innovation maturity. It is basically a survey every 2 years where we measure the innovation maturity within the various federal government entities. How do we set KPIs and targets? In different mechanisms. First, the national agenda KPIs. We look at the national agenda KPIs, or now we call them the national priorities or the national directions, as the basic points, because these came from the central government after extensive of work, after involvement, a lot of SMEs, a lot of subject matter experts, the citizens, the public. So we take them seriously as part of our planning. Then we take the sectorial and the government directions KPIs. Third, we take the global competitiveness KPI, selective competitiveness, where we would like to compete in those areas. If we say that we will choose everything, then we plan for failure. We need to focus, create the focus. This is one important word that I want to highlight. Core functions KPIs, basically the mandate. What are the core functions for the establishment of this entity, the best benchmarking KPIs? What is the best benchmarking in the field of this particular sector? And finally, but not final, is the historical data. The historical data is the jewelry that we can use to assess new KPIs that are established by the entity, especially for the new formulated KPIs. We go in different audit mechanism for all the entities, and basically these are the 5 main areas. We check the KPIs relevance and ambitious targets. We check also the, because I cannot see it from this one, we check also here the benchmarking. Do the entities do the benchmarking for those KPIs, the accuracy of the comprehensiveness of the indicators, the accuracy of comprehensiveness. We have, for example, 7 Emirates. Is the entity cover the whole Emirates, or they look, for example, certain Emirates where they are achieving very well in order to highlight a green, very good results for that particular KPI, and they are excluding others? No. In the audit, we say you did not cover the whole scope. You need to ensure accuracy and comprehensiveness of your scope. Organizational performance ecosystem. We also assess the culture within the entity as part of the ecosystem from the leadership perspective, from the management, from the frontline employees. Is there ecosystem of strategy and performance within the entity where derive excellence? And finally, it is about learning and continuous improvement. The cycle of learning never ends. It's basically start once you start measuring. This is a sample report. For each entity, we produce a sample report. Each report will indicate one particular KPI, and in each KPI, there is a target and actual for the various years, year 2017, 18, 20, and the color indicate if there is a gap or they are doing well. Green means they are doing well. Red means there is a gap and they need to resolve it. For each KPI, annually, we visit the entities and we produce such report where they can take actions. For some entities now, they reach the maturity level that they do this themselves. Now we act as a catalyst where we support the entities to ensure new mechanism of performance is there. Also, we have different sectorial strategies. We have the UAE strategy for fourth industrial revolution, UAE strategy for artificial intelligence. It is basically strategies that support the governments in order to achieve their strategic objectives in terms of the performance. UAE national agenda KPIs, we have a clear national agenda KPIs. Basically, we have one part of the indicators revolve around the citizens and the priorities, and others revolve around the global indicators. How are we performing compared to the globally in the world? Basically, we have 6 priorities, and in each priorities, we have various set of KPIs. Those KPIs are covering various sectors of the government work, from cohesive society and preserved identity, safe and public and fair judiciary. This was the starting point for setting a clear agenda for the UAE in order to embark in its excellence journey to becoming the world's leading government. Also, we have the governance model. Basically, I will not elaborate on this part, we have different stakeholders. The stakeholders' role is either approval, review, reporting progress, or informing. And we have the federal government, we have the main sponsor. The main sponsor is the main person who's looking for this particular KPI. He can be a leadership within the entity. He can be the minister or undersecretary, leadership position. Within his entity, he will look at the different stakeholders within the federal government entities, like who are going to provide the information, who are going to finance, who are going to provide the reporting, the approval from the cabinets and the Prime Minister's office. And also he will seek the support from the local governments. So it is a national level work between the federal and the local governments in order to achieve those KPIs, including private sector, free zones, and other civil organizations. We have this KPI card, which have the details of the KPI, the name, the definition, the main sponsor, and the regional benchmarkings, and how the UAE performing compared to the international regional indicators. Also, we aligned our KPIs with the Sustainable Development Goals, the Noble Sustainable Development Goals. Now the entities, they live the Sustainable Development Goals. We actually even gone further. We have developed a dashboard in the system where each entity can see its contribution to those Sustainable Development Goals. For example, in the First Right Education, we have developed some indicators that are related to the SDGs goals, the 70 goals of the SDGs. And here we can see that the different pillars of the UAE and how they are aligned with the SDG goals. This is one example for the goal of the good health and well-being. For example, the sub-goal by 2030 reduce the global material mortality ratio at less than 70% for 100 lives birth. We have some indicators in our agenda is that the healthcare quality index, average of number of mortalities, number of nurses per 1,000 population, and number of physicians per 1,000 population. Some indicators that are touching our core work, and this is the main systems, the main executives teams who are working. We have the national agenda teams who our main role is to set the targets, formulate sub-teams, and ensure governance as part of the work. Different tools are being used in order to monitor the progress from the reports, from the national agenda, from the website. The website basically is to report to the public what we are doing and how we are doing and what we are performing in those national agenda. It is being published. Everybody can see it. It is being reported in different platforms. And basically, I will end it with the National Government Performance Management Framework. It is basically an electronic system where we use it to ensure that we capture all the information in a systematic approach. His Highness has his own dashboard where he monitors the performance of all the entities. This is just a sample snapshot of the system. We have the different pillars and how they are performing for each particular pillar. And we have also for the enabler pillars, how each pillar is being performed and how each sub-indicator is performed. Each entity can see its own performance compared to the other entities, but they cannot see the name due to the governance. However, they can compete. They will see that I am in this indicator, I am number 3 compared to the 40 federal government entities that are available. I am above the government average or below the government average. This is also being able to see it. And this is finally, in conclusion, I would talk about the government performance management. We have shared our story with many countries. We have shared it with many entities, more than just to name few, Senegal, Greece, Iraq, Jordan, and Egypt, and many other countries. We have strategic partnership. We have built many different capacities for hundreds of different people around the world. We have sustained the sustainable development as part of the government work. And finally, we have developed a dashboard where we are sharing it with the different countries to as a starting point where we put all our experience in electronic system. They use it and it becomes their own system, a performance management system where they can use it, they can link it to the SDGs. And this is what you see it in the screen. So this is in conclusion, the government performance management framework. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Khalifa. Mr. Alejandro Marquez Mondaza, Ms. Alma Portoliedo, Dr. Radhi Al-Hashmi, and Mr. Khalifa Al-Hibsi will join us for an open discussion.
Okay, so we would like to know more about the methodology because it's really very interesting. So how was the government performance management framework methodology designed or developed?
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Salma. It is a very important question because when you talk about the government performance management framework, it is something that is developed through extensive work. One of them is to achieve the UAE vision and the national priorities. Basically, we needed to be connected to the world and reality in terms of the resources that we have, our government strategy, and where we would like to be. So this was done because of the need to support the strategic planning process, to enhance the competitiveness and government strategies, and to assist decision makers in terms to monitor the performance of the entities in a systematic approach, to be able to take actions in predictive, proactive, and corrective measures, and to improve decision within the same language and cultures and dimensions of the performance management. Basically, to bring together the inputs, the resources that are available with the outputs, what government wanted to do, what the government wanted to achieve, making clear trade-offs and choices of the way forward for the government to work to create value, to create outcomes. Too many priorities means no priorities. So having a clear priorities, and according to certain studies, about 60 to 90% of the strategic fails because of the planning part, of the execution part, sorry. And this is what we understand. So to answer that question is that to report the framework was developed to cover the various measurable aspects of the government work, report important information with the relevant authority, and the participation of the citizens and the public. It was a collective work of the central government, the federal government entity, the segment of the key stakeholders that play a big part in the economy and big part of the government work. And to keep, while keeping in mind there is no advantage in putting too many KPIs, because the key to successful implementation of performance monitoring is to start small, and every chosen metric is important to measure the KPIs. So basically, the government methodology was the development of collective work of different stakeholders to make sure how the government can report its commitments. It is about meeting our commitments. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Your answer has been of the most interest. I also have a question for Dr. Radia Al-Hashmi. I just wanted to ask, how do you see the future and what are the aspirations of the Accelerator Government Center?
Thank you very much for this question. I think very interesting to think about the future and aspiration. Like you've seen in my presentation, that we've tried this methodology in UAE. And I think over the years, we found out the tricks and things to do that can speed up the government work. So really my inspiration for the Government Accelerator Center is to really embed this culture of speed, of innovation, of trying out experimentation in the government, because people are a little bit hesitant to try new ideas and new tricks. So how can you speed up the government work and really add this component of this in the culture of everyday government employee? And my other inspiration is really to work internationally. How can we really share our knowledge and our success story with these different countries? How can we really learn from them, like how we're doing with you guys, and how you guys can learn from us? I think learning and exchanging knowledge between different countries, it really adds to all the different government, and the whole idea of the government not to be like what we are known before, a very slow government. We want to change the concept and the way the citizens think about government, that we are also up to speed and we are also up to new technology. And how can we really increase the speed into the government locally and globally? So this is my inspiration for the Government Accelerator Center. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your answer.
So now I think I'll ask you then. Now it's my turn to ask you a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Your beautiful commitments, so more than 1,400 commitments with all these priority that you have in the government, very interesting. And I think the methodology that you presented, how you are really following up their commitment and following up how they have achieved. I was just wondering, did you ever had like a challenge that some of these commitments, they had difficult time to reach? How can you support, or how did you support your government to achieve these different obstacles they face throughout the 6 months or 1 year you have with them?
Well, I will go ahead with this question. I'll be short because it seems a very complex question, but actually the answer is very simple. I mean, as you may know, the Spanish government is formed by two political parties. So in every government, but especially in a coalition government, a constant interaction and dialogue between the different parts involved in the elaborating an initiative to comply with the different commitments it's a must. So I would say the key elements are interaction and dialogue. And additionally, in general, I would say that this is done by incorporating every effort and studying all the different possibilities which may consist in any progress in the commitment. So I'd say that's the answer. Just good faith, constant interaction, and dialogue.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Khalifa, you have a question?
Yes, thank you very much. Maybe you inspired me to ask one more question. When several entities are involved in cross-cutting government sectoral strategy, how do you evaluate the sectoral strategy effectiveness to ensure successful implementation and accountability?
Well, thank you very much for your question. Well, first of all, we'd like to point that for us, accountability is different from evaluation, because from the presidency of the government, we don't do evaluations, but accountability, and it's a bit different just for us also to remind us every day, because, for example, accountability has a continuous follow-up, and it does not focus on the value of the intervention or the effectiveness that could be a perfect evaluation criteria. But it's complementary to evaluation, but we do not focus on the value of the intervention that is only for evaluation. But it's complementary, because accountability maybe can provide indications or inputs on what to evaluate, but we have to separate them. But in the other part, when we face cross-cutting commitments, our working system allows us to work with that complexity, because as you can recall, one of our principles, one of our meeting our commitments principles is the global and shared character, which means that it encompasses the action of the government as a whole. And we work with the system, with the action of the government as a whole, including all sectorial working or strategies. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for me too. So thank you. It's been so enriching, this experience.
Thank you very much for sharing your experience.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for taking part in this discussion. To conclude today's session, I would now like to invite the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Spain to the UAE, His Excellency Inigo de Palacio, for a closing remark.
I wish to thank you for today's interventions and welcome the leadership shown by the Office of the Prime Minister of the UAE, today represented by its Director General, His Excellency Abdullah Nasser Luta, and the General Secretariat of the Presidency of the Government of Spain, led by my Mr. Francisco Martin, and their respective teams. This meeting, which is a continuation of previous contacts, shows a common vision in one of the many goals that we set ourselves when we approved a joint communique of high political content during the visit of the President of the Government of Spain to the UAE on 2nd February last. The leaders of our two countries agreed to establish a new and ambitious framework for our relations. The feeling that inspired that occasion at the highest level was the realization that the web of our abundant shared interests was far from reaching its full potential. And we were therefore determined to take our relations to a high level. This is a task at hand. The many contacts we developed during the 6 months of the Dubai Expo have left us with a dense agenda of projects that we're now implementing, as our meeting today shows. Two major milestones are now guiding our action. First in time, the holding of the forthcoming political consultations between our two foreign ministers, which we would like to hold by the end of next month in Madrid, as has been proposed. Then, of course, the all-important state visit of the President of the United Arab Emirates, His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The invitation was accepted, and a suitable day to hold it in Spain is yet to be fixed. We look forward in the coming months to rolling out that full agenda of shared interest. This will revolve around political dialogue at a time of serious international uncertainties and in the economic domain, with priorities of increased collaboration and of mutual transfer of know-how and new businesses and investments, particularly in the field of renewable energy, including green hydrogen, aerospace and defense, agri-technology, and other advanced technologies, including on railways. We're currently organizing also for next October the preparatory working group meeting of the Bilateral Economic Joint Commission to be held in the coming months in Madrid. As an additional priority, I would like to highlight our cultural cooperation and draw attention to the importance of projecting the full extent and depth yet unexplored of our centuries-old cultural links based on an extraordinarily rich Hispano-Andalusian legacy. In this regard, I would like to thank for the truly ambitious proposals made to us by the Minister of Presidential Court to begin to develop together all this potential and to make the United Arab Emirates the first beacon in the Gulf region to project the common Arab and Spanish legacy. However, today we're summoned by the commitment of both governments to strengthen collaboration on good governance through a public sector experience sharing program on which we are here to deliver. As today's exchanges have shown, good governance is a continuous process composed of multiple variables: transparency, the quality and continuous training of civil servants, the proper and responsible handling of data and its communication. In addition, we should be very much focused on the accountability of projects, the careful assessment of their feasibility and progress, and how we use the means and funds that the state puts in our hands to serve the citizens. In short, it also amounts to what the citizens get for their money. It includes adequate scrutiny, internal control mechanisms, and continuous evaluation and assessment in the delivery of public service. While strong accountability and transparency are not a panacea for solving the numerous challenges that governments face in a complex environment, a healthy system of accountability also promotes improvements in how government works. It is extremely encouraging that both governments can share experience of common interests and the goal of strengthening open government values, something that as a resident in the UAE, I can attest daily and should be commended. A few things have particularly attracted my attention, which show relevant commonalities and areas in which we can learn from each other. First, the relevance of SDGs for both governments. and of bringing government closer to citizens. Also, the complexity of modern good governance. Our two countries have complex territorial organizations, which brings us closer together in the experience of government, thus making the sharing of information more meaningful. The importance of information to citizens stood out clearly. Second, comparing initiatives and testing our capabilities against targets and vis-à-vis the achievements of others is a powerful driving force. KPIs and index comparison is part of the exercise, but also time to market in delivering to citizens' expectations and those of the stakeholders that await results from government action. And I conclude, good governance is not only a political and values imperative, it is oriented above all towards considering citizens as the ultimate recipients and inspiration for our efforts, particularly in these times when governments, certainly the government of Spain, have had to face unusual challenges on account of the difficulties of various kinds that these dangerous times confront us with. I've no doubt that this has also been the case for the UAE government. Once again, thank you all for the joint effort that we shall carry on. And as we look to the future, I conclude by reiterating to the UAE government our most sincere friendship and will to continue to cooperate in our shared endeavors. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, for your speech. Ladies and gentlemen, today's seminar is the first of a series of sessions that the governments of the Kingdom of Spain and the United Arab Emirates will organize as part of this mutual collaboration. Thank you all for participating, and we hope to see you again in the coming sessions.